Welcome back, everybody, to the second episode of Minor League News and Brews. Still in the basement, still Bucs in the basement. I'm Craig Toth here. And as you can see, we are moving our way up through the Pirate system. This week, we'll be tackling the Greensboro Grasshoppers. We'll still probably be talking a little bit of Bradenton Marauders, a little bit of Altoona Curve, because as we talked to Ben Picorni, the new voice of the Bradenton Marauders last week, there is, some trickle down, some triple up effects that go on this week to talk about the Greensboro Grasshoppers. Bringing in, he's been on the regular Bucs in the Basement feed before, talking a lot of minor leagues. A guy that, like I said, he's one of the only people I know that watches more minor league baseball than I do. And you'll see him right now. It is Anthony Murphy, writes for Pirates Prospects P2, putting out videos. You got to go follow the man's YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed to that yet, you have to do so. He breaks down so much stuff, man. And like I said, you could just spend hours, watching that. Murph, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing really good, man. Excited to I guess this is my first appearance on this one, but be back talking some baseball with you.
Yeah, and there is a lot to talk about here. Last time you were on Bucs in the Basement, we talked about bringing you back about, kind of talking about some of the NRI guys that people would have to be introduced to. Right now, you've got some of those guys in the major league camp, so we're not seeing those call overs or call ups from the backfields just yet. But I'm pretty sure you may see some of these guys at some point in time. And you may see, I think there's at least a few that we had talked about possibly last week that may be in the World Baseball Classic. So some names that may pop up here. And it's going to be a tough task for you here, Murph, because unless something changes with MILB TV, and I know there have been some inklings that there may be more video, more streaming from certain areas, we don't get to see a whole lot of Greensboro Grasshoppers games.
No, and that's with how the home field works out. That's pretty unfortunate too, because there's plenty of offense to go around at the home games there. I will say, like, I've seen pictures. There are cameras set up at the ballpark, and they have streamed games on like the local television before. So like, maybe they're one of the ones that get added this year. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait to see. But that would be really fun, because it seems like Greensboro's got a real interesting team this year, potentially.
Yeah, and I wish I would remember the gentleman's name that does it for the local TV news, because he does put out some videos here and there, and I definitely follow him. If I think of it, or if I find it beforehand, I'll share it out to everybody, because there is some stuff out there. But I mean, a lot of the times here we're relying on the scouts. We're relying on, I hate to do it, but sometimes we're relying on just looking at the stat lines. And the big thing is comparing the home and the road splits, because of the bandbox that is, Greensboro Grasshoppers home ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely. You see probably some of the most widest despairing stat lines from on a home away that I've seen, even like searching like other systems and players that's playing with other minor league teams and stuff like that. You definitely get quite the differential home and away from Greensboro.
And the different part about that for me is that, okay, well, you're looking at inflated numbers potentially for the batters, but then you're also not knowing exactly how well a pitcher is actually doing until we see them come up to Altoona, which is, not an extremely hitter friendly ballpark, but it's also, I mean, with that short, left field, you could see some, line drives or something sneak over that as well. So, I mean, with that, and also you're looking at a player like a Leo Verpagero, and people are just looking at the airs and stuff. And it's nothing against the groundskeepers at any of the minor league ballparks. They do the best they can, but those, it's not as pristine as, what you will see at PNC Park.
Exactly.
So last week, like I said, me and Ben, we pointed out some of the players from Bradenton that we thought could have a shot of bumping up to Greensboro. So I know that you probably have an opinion on this man, and it's Bubba Chandler. I've heard that if it was just based on the pitching, it's a potential that he could have, the Greensboro assignment. Not even really sure about that yet because he hasn't, pitched too many innings in the minor leagues thus far. But I wouldn't see it being too long before we see him in Greensboro. Like I said, I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I feel probably like the same exact way. If we're talking Bubba the pitcher, like I'd almost be ready just to say, yeah, just send him to Greensboro. I mean, he showed enough at the low A or single A level that I feel comfortable just kind of. And if you're that high on him, just give him the push anyways. The Pirates have been really aggressive with the kids that they're really high on in the lower levels. So it probably wouldn't shock me if they gave him the push there. If you're just talking about the pitcher, Bubba the hitter is like probably a completely different story because I feel like he's someone that could use quite a bit more time in Bradenton as far as hitting. But like if you think his future is on the mound, you don't hold him up at any point just to hit. I mean, you can still DH him in Greensboro. They'll probably, we just talked about like the hitter friendly ballpark. So and he has some good power, so he'll hit some out there. He'll probably flash some power and do that kind of stuff. It's just at some point I think it'll probably catch up, and I think you just kind of wean him out of it at some point, and to the point where he's just pitching by the end of the year.
Yeah, because I mean the only real comp that we have, and he wasn't shown any hitting whatsoever, would be Jared Jones, as far as like a high school arm. And you're talking about the acceleration through the system. I mean, him coming up to Greensboro, probably being in Altoona this year, getting the non-roster invite and everything. So there's one example. The other part is losing some players from the Bradenton squad last year that could potentially have found their way onto the Greensboro Grasshoppers roster in the Rule 5 draft. And I know you were probably hurt by those more than the casual Pirates fan.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a lot of names too. It wasn't one of the names coming from Bradenton, but I had just written up this really long breakdown on Domingo Gonzalez and how I thought he was like a relief guy to kind of watch. And Tim Williams, the editor on this site, we're like, okay, well, we're going to hold it off because we don't think that the Rule 5's this week and it's going to kind of get buried and no one's going to be talking about it. So we'll save it for next week and then we'll put it out. And lo and behold, Domingo Gonzalez gets taken in the minor league portion, and I kind of have to rework the entire article and kind of like, well, this is what we're losing now. But
you're like editor note.
Yeah. But as far as the guys coming up from Bradenton, Jovis Del Rosario was a really interesting guy to watch last year. And he would have been like, I think he's probably one of those guys that, like, just because of the pure guys that are moving up or potentially could be moving up, the Greensboro rotation is probably going to be really stacked this year. He's probably a guy that probably would have ended up in the bullpen just because he's kind of behind on the depth chart when you think about it, like long term and stuff like that. But he had a really good season, one of the most solid, consistent starters on that Bradenton pitching staff that was really good and had a lot of really young arms on it. So not kind of losing him was kind of a, don't want to say big blow, but it was kind of a shocker kind of thing.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger blows to maybe, you and me and probably like 3 or 4 other people had started making out our, Greensboro roster at that point in time.
Yeah, there's a lot of deleting on my spreadsheet going on that weekend or that week.
Yeah. So let's stick with the rotation here. Right now, I have Anthony Solometo
Hmm.
moving up. I have Po Yu Chen
Hmm.
moving up. Carlos Jimenez. I think that's a guy that you could speak to a decent amount. And then after that, I have just like a grouping, like kind of bunched together. Is there anybody in this Greensboro, rotation that kind of sticks out to you?
Well, you mentioned him too. Like I've been a really big Carlos Jimenez fan since like kind of seeing him on there. I love it. I love his stuff. He has three really great, solid, average to above average pitchers. The changeup might be the best changeup in the system right now. Has a lot of the like the air bending backwards kind of break to it. The curveball is really good. Fastball, he hits mid to upper 90s with it. Has to work on the control. I feel like he's the kind of guy that maybe kind of like I don't want to because of kind of lofty expectations because he still put up some decent numbers, but kind of like a Jared Jones as kind of season to where like okay he look kind of gets hit a little bit hard kind of stuff, but like he still puts up like the strikeouts and that kind of stuff. So I feel like that could be a case with a lot of guys in the rotation this year, but Jimenez is the guy I'm watching. He started the year in Bradenton with them and but he jumped up to Greensboro towards the end of the year. Valentin Linares, I think, is another guy to watch. He had a really good year, kind of came on late, kind of gave didn't put up the strikeout numbers like the other guy, but kind of given the Luis Ortiz type vibes kind of thing from last year. Maybe at first glance, kind of an older guy playing in Bradenton, but older but inexperienced kind of thing, and big body, looks like a starting pitcher on the mound. Has a nice little pitch mix to work with. But he could start in Greensboro. They could give him the Ortiz treatment since there are so many names potentially in this rotation and kind of just shoot him to Altoona. But he would be a guy that, like, if he stays in Greensboro, probably be like the front of the rotation guy to start.
And as the season moves along, I wondering who could get bumped up. I One of the names that's on top of my list is obviously Shim. The newest international product. Is he going to get? I think last week I mentioned, is he going to get the Po Yu Chen treatment with just blowing guys away in the FCL, brought up to Bradenton, and depending on how quick they're going to play that. And for me, it was just more of the the international, the level of competition and
Yeah.
who they've played against, uh, because they are not completely similar pitchers by any stretch of the imagination. Po Yu Chen was blowing guys away, but he's more of a contact guy. Shim, as of right now, looks like he's like a swing and miss kind of profile. So it's just more of getting their eyes on him. And we're
Mhm.
not seeing too much from the backfields at this point in time because the major league club has moved over to Lecom,
Yeah.
so some of those eyes have gone away a little bit. I always give a shout out to Florida Prospect Report. Those guys over there are still on top of major league and minor league. So if anybody doesn't follow them, please go do so. Um, but and another one I thought of was Hunter Barco. Um,
Yeah, he'll be.
is as to whether or not build up to be a starter from the get-go, or just given some relief innings in Bradenton or the FCL as the end part of his rehab. I know I had spoken with him and he was saying June or July is the target to get back on the mound in competitive games. And then he put out a video like right after that of throwing actually off the mound. He was at about 60% right now. So just wondering what they would do with him, or if they would just get, it's all going to be like, okay, where can we fit these guys in, because you're going to have
Yeah.
guys that were drafted at that point in time that you're going to have to we're going to have to check out Ethan Houlihan's his spreadsheet to see where everybody fits and what the domestic reserve list is at. But moving to the hitting side a little bit, who is probably one or two guys that are on the top of your list as to who you want to hopefully get eyes on in Greensboro this year?
I think if he moves up, as long as he moves up, and like a lot of that's up in the air. It's outfield is kind of crowded and stuff like that. But just with one guy that would really excite me in Greensboro, especially, would probably be Rodolfo Nolasco, just because the kind of like the raw pop in his bat and stuff like that. We saw some of it play in Bradenton. I think he'd be one of those guys that you probably have to. I can see him putting up like really good home run numbers in Greensboro, and you kind of have to like pump the brakes on him just in case, just because you know that it's Greensboro. Calm down. Let's see how he does the following year. Has some swing and miss issue. Had some swing and miss issues. Would like to see him getting straightened out. But it's first full year in pro ball, so we see that a lot sometimes with that. But he would probably be the guy that I'd be most interested to see in Greensboro. Another name probably I'd say Jack Brannigan too. I think Jack Brannigan overall is kind of like an intriguing thing too, because that would kind of circle back to the pitching side to see how exactly they use him, to see if they're going to use him out of the bullpen, if that keeps him from playing third base. We know he kind of wants to hit over pitch, but the Pirates did announce him as a two-way player when they drafted him, so I'd imagine we'd see him get into some games on the mound and stuff like that. Maybe a situation to where you pitch him on a Sunday or something like that, and then just have him in the field the rest of the week. But he showed some pretty good speed. He showed a little bit of power when he first got to Bradenton, kind of tailed off towards the end. But like he'd already gone through a long season at Notre Dame and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you can't really blame him for that. But
yeah, and with those types of guys, I mean, they've usually, even if their plan is to have them pitch long term, it's usually they come in, and if they're got the hit tool, they'll at least give them a shot at that. And with Brannigan, I mean, the defense is there as well. I mean, so it's a tough spot to be in, but I also want to see him a little bit in that relief role, a la now like a JC Flowers, to see what it would look like. That's just kind of a guy that I always turn to in that aspect of things. But you also don't want to. I feel like that the development department for the Pirates is. They don't want to close the door on anything too quickly.
No, absolutely not. Like he's shown really great defense. I think like even Baseball America said like his upside is like a Gold Glove caliber third baseman, at least defensively. Is great arm. He showed that a few times in Bradenton. Made a couple of amazing throws, a couple of great plays. Charging the ball. So like if that's his thing, like you don't want to necessarily take it away with it, but like the Pirates saw something enough. Like he didn't pitch much at Notre Dame, but they saw enough of him to where they were excited enough to draft him as a two-way player. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how they work and how they manage that, because it's a little bit different than Bubba Chandler, where Bubba Chandler is like a starter, and then you don't want to put his arm in the out in the field, so he's just DHing all the time. You just put Brannigan as a DH, and that kind of takes away like one of his biggest assets, and that's his defense.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch there. One guy that I have written down here, and I actually have him circled and I believe starred, is Sung Chi Chang. Was a pretty big name that people were talking about last year in Bradenton. Didn't have a bad year. No, didn't have a exceptional year either. I think people were looking for him to have that complete breakout, but he's an exciting player in my eyes to watch.
Has an amazing approach at the play. I think he led the system in walks last year. So like he has plenty of plate discipline, takes walks. He's pretty much your prototypical leadoff hitter at this point. I think maybe there'll be some power that comes along. Like his frame doesn't really speak to like I'm gonna grow into much more power, but he was a great defender at shortstop, can get on base. The worst case scenario, he develops like some double power, and like I'll take that at that point if he's still walking and not really striking out too much. He stole 20 plus bases as well last year, and that was with missing time. And when he was hurt last year, you can tell the difference in that Bradenton lineup. Like he was hurt. They struggled to get guys on to score some runs. He came back and they just kind of took off in this second half of the season.
Yeah. And there's a couple guys here that are maybe have fallen out of prospect favor, and Mikel Scotto and Alexander Mojica.
Yeah.
kind of had, some lofty expectations. The ceilings are there. I mean, we've seen the ceilings of what these guys' potentials are, but to be able to put them together for the entire time, not saying that I'm ready to write them off yet, but I'm thinking we better see some hot starts from these guys. And it could be probably just with the depth above them and around them. It's probably going to be Greensboro to start the season.
Okay, for Escato, I would definitely assume he'd get another shot at Greensboro. His swing at times was so out of place. Like it was just bad. It looked like it just needed a complete rework. Hopefully they were able to get some of that done in the backfields, and then he's going to finish the rest of last season back in Bradenton. But with Escato, he might be one of the best defensive shortstops in the system right now. So really would like to see kind of the hit stuff come together and stuff like that, because then you have the makings of potentially a major league starting shortstop at that point. With Mojica's still 20 years old. So it feels like he's been around forever. And so
and also you look at him and he doesn't look 20 years old.
No, he's the thing where you the guy hands the bird to I am 12. It's like, yeah, you're not 12. Like he's the kind of guy I'll never believe his actual age, but he grew up quick. So I could see a scenario depending on who you have at the first base picture in Bradenton and stuff like that. Maybe you can start him there again because he is still just 20 years old. But he's already racked up a lot of at bats there, and yeah, we will definitely. He'd be another one that would be real fun to watch in Greensboro with the raw power that he has if he can walk into a couple of them.
Yeah, he definitely will, put some exciting at bats together. Mm-hmm. The big focus towards the end of our last show, and like I said, I think my mind always drifts back to this because I was a catcher growing up, and I'll always be a catcher at heart. Is the catching position in Greensboro. Last year, you had Abraham Gutierrez, you had Andy Rodriguez to start the season. You had a Grant Koch. A lot of the pitchers I talked to down there, liked working with him as well. And I think he was, a pretty good, role model for some of the other catchers out there. I have a hard time when I'm making out these rosters to even figure out who is going to be the catcher in Greensboro with all of these young arms.
I think I guess when you're thinking about your high young upside pitchers, the best thing you could probably do for them is consistency. And if that's what you want to do, White Hendry's probably your best bet for that. That he would have caught them all down in Bradenton last year. You can even slide just because how crowded Double-A may end up being. If you're talking about starting Henry Davis back there, you can slide Dylan Shockley down there since he's more of an organizational guy. And some of the people I've talked to and just like that, they love Dylan Shockley in general and stuff like that. He's probably top 2 or top 3 of the best overall defensive guy there. He's great at calling games, just great with the pitchers and stuff like that. If you have 2 of those guys like Hendry and Shockley catching those young arms, I think maybe the results on the field, because it is Greensboro, may not be there, but I think that will do a lot for their development and progression and stuff like that.
I can't disagree with anything you said there, Murph. And I had White Hendry's name written down. So, either we're on the same page and we're geniuses, or we're on the same page and we're completely wrong. I mean, we'll have to figure that out. But for everybody that doesn't, please go follow, Anthony Murphy. Go read his stuff on Pirates Prospects. I mean, they're putting stuff out every day, couple times. I mean, Tuesday's the big drop day. Go follow the YouTube page and everything. And Murph, you know what? I mean, hopefully this minor league news and Brews thing takes off, and we can have you on again real soon, brother.
Absolutely, man. Just name the time.
right, guys, that was Anthony Murphy, and you're going to hear some music here. And for people that listened to the episode last week, you're going to know what it means.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
Well, guys, that means it's time for some beer reviews. And like I said, unfortunately, I tried to procure some local Greensboro beers, but it's a lot of like small batch micro brews down there, and I'm gonna have to go check it out at some point in time. So people are gonna say I'm cheating here because it's on the way from Fort Collins, Colorado, and now has another brewery in Asheville, North Carolina. But I've been drinking these forever, man, and they're so freaking cool. It is the Voodoo Rangers. My light's kind of like shining on there, but the Voodoo Rangers, man, they come up with like Space Force and Juice Force, and they're just like such cool names and everything. And working with the people over at Creekside Beer over there on Big Sewickley Creek, this is the best that we could come up with. So I do thank them for taking the time. For people that didn't listen, I do the Waboba system, the weighted based on batting average. 400 Clement is Honus, 300 Clemente, 200 Mendoza, and then also the 100, the Kevin Polkovich, with a little bit of the weighted based on my preference. So these ones are all going to be fairly weighted because they're all IPAs. And when people say they don't enjoy IPAs or that people that drink IPAs don't actually enjoy them, no. I enjoy, and I absolutely love my IPAs. While I've been speaking with Murph here, I've been going straight back to the Juicy Haze IPA. Man, just a smooth, easy drinking beer. And this one on the regular boba is going to come in around a 3.75. So the weighted part of that is going to knock that down to around a 3.25. The next one, like I said, Juice Force. Like how cool of a Juice Force? It's like Space Force. It's such a cool name that I can't get enough of it. And this is a hazy Imperial IPA. Imperials are a little bit heavy for me, so they kind of fall into that realm of like I don't drink as many of them because man, if you have one of them, it's just kind of I can't take it for the whole entire beer. So this one is actually not going to be weighted as much. This one is, I have it coming in. I'm looking at my notes here from tasting it. It's coming in at around a 3.5. And because it's not that full IPA, it's only going to be knocked down about 0.25 points. So you're going to see them coming in around the same size. Then you have the original, the Voodoo Ranger IPA, the first one that I had here. And this one, it's going to come in around like a 3.25, but it's going to get, the full bump down from the pale ale. So it's going to drop down to like around the 2.75, just below the Clemente, but well above the Mendoza. And then the Imperial IPA. And once again, like this one, it's not one that I would, completely drink a lot of. Good tasting. Once again, going to come in around a 3.25, get knocked down to that 2.75. All good beers. Like I said, hopefully, at least with the next one here, everybody could tell you the next one's going to be coming live from either Magnanimous or Motorworks Brewing down in Bradenton on when I'm down there for spring training. And after that, we're going to take a little trip out to Altoona with John Moses. So hopefully I can make a quick trip up to Altoona, get some beers there. For everybody that doesn't, follow me at Bucs Basement on Twitter, writing for Inside the Bucs Basement. I started, but not using too much of the Minor League News and Brews Twitter handle, but maybe putting some more stuff out there. Like and subscribe, share, and be back next week doing this from Florida.